morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We hope you had a good 4th. Here's to hoping you have an even better 5th. July 5th is underrated.
Okay.
Completely underrated. People forget about it, but they shouldn't, because we got a big program for you today. The KD and Kyrie connection has long been in the making.
Breaking news.
Breaking
Tell
news.
you
July
what I
5th
mean.
Underrated. I always thought it was properly rated.
Underrated. Zion Williamson begins his Rookie of the Year quest, but we start with Rafael Nadal. Big news there. I'm kidding. We would never start with Rafael Nadal. We start with the biggest story yet to happen in the NBA. Ah, very nice.
Of course.
The Kawhi watch. Nick does know everything. The reigning MVP had the decision narrowed down to the Clippers, Lakers, or Raptors. But according to friend of the show, Cris Broussard, it is now down to a coin flip, with the Claw doing some deep soul searching between the Lakers and Raptors, between Hollywood and Drake. All right, Nick, what do you think? What will this decision tell us about Kawhi Leonard?
I think it's a really good question because, as we've talked about a lot, very few people know much of anything about what makes Kawhi tick, about who Kawhi is. Cris, you've known him since he came into the league, and even you don't know Kawhi incredibly well, as well as you know some other people in the league, and you know him better than just about anybody in the media. But I do think, and we've said this before with teams and the draft or if free agency decisions, your actions almost always tell the truth. And when you look at these 3 options, whichever one he picks will give us a window into what's important to him. If he picks the Clippers, which with respect, I know Broussard's saying they're out of it, but let's just say for the time being that all 3 teams remain. If he picks the Clippers, he is saying not only is going back to home-ish important, but I want the biggest challenge possible. I want to climb an even taller mountain than the one I just climbed in Toronto. If he picks the Raptors, it makes total sense. It's not just that trust and infrastructure and what the Raptors earned through him is important, but also he wants to defend his title. We've had 73 times the teams won a title in this league. 69 of those 73, their best players come back the following year. The 3 times it hasn't happened, George Mikan once because he retired. Michael Jordan once because he retired. Michael Jordan a 2nd time because he retired. Kawhi Leonard is the 73rd, and we will see what decision he takes.
Wow, that's interesting.
And if he chooses the Lakers, much like the Clippers, there's the home element, but it will also be about, I want to play with the best possible players and have the best chance at not getting my 3rd championship, but getting my 3rd, maybe my 4th, maybe even my 5th. So whichever decision he makes will give us a window into what is actually the most important to him and what things matter to him but don't matter that much. So I think that's the information we hopefully should get in the next 24 hours.
I think people are just going to draw a bunch of conclusions based on what they think he should do. I don't think we're going to know that much about Kawhi after this. I believe Kawhi is going to make this decision, or someone's going to make this decision, and then Kawhi is going to go about getting some type of rest, allowing his body to repair, preparing for the training camp, no matter where that is. And he believes he's going to be a better basketball player at 28, because let's look at a year ago. He was coming off a significant injury where he missed most of the season. You can just basically cancel out he missed the season. Almost the same thing Kevin Durant is facing, because when Kawhi came back, there was a lot of mystery to how healthy will he be. So Kawhi, there is no rehab this offseason. It's just rest, and he's going to be ready, a better player, when they start the season next year, no matter where he decides to go. That being the Clippers, Toronto, or the Lakers, it's about championships. Now, that's what it's always been about with Kawhi, but because people don't know him, what they'll say now is, oh, he went to the Clippers. He wants the biggest challenge. He went to the Lakers. He wants to play with LeBron. Toronto, the chemistry they had and being able to repeat, he wants to play there. Yeah, all those things could be true. But Kawhi Leonard is about winning, and he doesn't care as much that great players are there. That's the reason why he looked at the Clippers with KD. That's why he was going to look at Brooklyn. That's why he was going to look at the Knicks. Not only because the location, doing business, his brand moving forward, But he doesn't mind that there's great basketball players. Kawhi Leonard is not trying to avoid great players playing with them. He's not trying to have this narrative be that, oh, you know something? I went to the hardest spot. No, he's going to go to the best spot for him to continue developing his basketball game. To me, it's a matter of, did the Lakers and or the Clippers, were they able to overcome the trust factor that he has in Toronto? And he trusts the team, he trusts the coaching staff, he trusts the medical staff. So for me, that's all this is really about. We are not going to know Kawhi Leonard after this decision.
Do you think, Nick, that his legacy will be altered in any way based on what decision he makes? And let's assume it is either the Lakers or the Raptors. The Lakers, well, he won, but he really wants to win, and this is guaranteed. Or the Raptors, you know, he did it sort of with this group of guys that got close but couldn't quite get there, and he helped them get there. Do you think his legacy is altered either way?
Well, I think that is almost impossible to answer until we know the end result. I mean, of course, what he does in what will be the prime of his career, I would argue last year was the first year of his actual apex prime. Maybe the year before would have been, but he was injured.
He was hurt.
So he is now really just entering that 3 to 5 year stretch where you are at your absolute best as an athlete and as a basketball player. What he does with it, that is how legacies are forged. But because he has 2 titles already, one as a role player when he ended up winning Finals MVP, and one as the only superstar on a roster, I don't believe you can go backwards legacy-wise. And so he has already established himself as this tier Hall of Famer. He's already a Hall of Famer. That's what he earned last year in Toronto. In my eyes, like you can't be a 2-time Finals MVP and the unquestioned best player on a champion that ends a dynasty and not be a Hall of Famer. So he's already there. He can just go forward, and Chris would say his cement's still wet, like his cement's not dry. He can continue to forge his legacy. You go to LA with the Lakers or the Clippers or the Raptors, if he wins another championship or championships in either place, it only further enhances that.
When he gets to LeBron James's age and or tenure in the league, if he's still playing basketball, let's just do age-ish.
Yeah.
What's his best chance of winning championships? And that's with the Los Angeles Lakers. So the Clippers have never won. All right? Toronto just now are winning one time with Kawhi. And if he decides to go back there with the chemistry he had back there, pay higher taxes, live in another country, that will be saying something about him.
Yeah.
But for Kawhi, man, this is about championships and which organization are going to support me and my quest to be the best player in the world and get as many championships as possible. To me, the only team that presents that are the Los Angeles Lakers. Jenny Buss is doing it now, trying to get them back on track after 6 awful seasons, falling in the track of her great father who won all those championships. So for me with Kawhi Leonard, the Lakers become very, very hard to beat. And do I go back to San Antonio? Didn't he request to be traded from there? Mm-hmm. And where did he request to be traded to?
The Lakers.
Yeah, so for me, if he goes back to his original request, what does that mean? That he was true to it. He really wanted to get out of San Antonio and get to L.A. I believe there's going to be an announcement today.
I was just going to ask that. Really?
I do believe there's going to be an announcement today.
On Sunday, their quest for a record 4th World Cup has all come down to this. Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, and the United States put their legacy on the line against the Netherlands. The FIFA Women's World Cup final coverage begins Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
First 15 minutes, most important 15 minutes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
See if they can get off to a good start.
Yes.
Starts. All right, don't miss the exclusive trailer debut of Disney's new movie, Mulan, Sunday on Fox. And it is now time for Empowered to Win, sponsored by Disney's Mulan in theaters this March. Though Kawhi's decision is taking what feels like forever, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving teaming up in Brooklyn was quite premeditated. The two reportedly planned on playing together last offseason. And though we will have to wait a year to see the two on the court together, the Nets have bragging rights. What do you think, Nick? Do KD and Kyrie need to win a title to validate their move to Brooklyn?
Well, I feel like their decision's been validated in this regard. We expected it. No one is questioning it. No one is saying it lacks some competitive integrity. And we look at the team they chose to go to and say they are absolutely viable championship contenders once KD gets healthy. Nobody feels like they're ring chasing there. Nobody feels like they're stacking the deck. And nobody feels like they each went to, if they had gone to separate teams, like, wait, you're going there to prime your career out? Nobody feels, so I think the decision's already been validated. For their careers individually to be validated, yeah, they got to make some NBA finals or a NBA finals and win a title. Like, this is, for Kevin Durant in particular, this is the only thing he has left to do. And for Kyrie Irving, a title in Brooklyn alongside Kevin Durant would vault him up the list as far as best wingmen, not actual wing players, but Robin to someone's Batman we've ever had. If you can win a title alongside LeBron being a huge part of it, not just the shot in Game 7, how about the 41 points he dropped in the lead up to Game 7? And then for KD, we've said for a couple years the only thing he has left, he's already won a league MVP, he's won a couple finals MVPs. It is, can he win a title as on a team that hadn't won one as the unquestioned best guy? So that's the validation each of these guys are looking for. But I don't think if they don't win a title, if after 4 or even 3 years, which it could be the case, they both have opt-outs, they go elsewhere, we're going to say this was the wrong decision or they screwed up, because we expected this decision, and basketball-wise, it makes sense for both of them.
Yeah, I'm going to look at it very, very different. I'm going to look at it as two guys that we didn't know. They were friends. They wanted to play together. That's obvious. So it's a major accomplishment, because both of them are accomplished players. Both of them, they don't have to win another championship to be able to validate their career, because we don't know how the Eastern Conference, we don't know what's going to happen in the West. Like, we don't know the storylines. If Kevin Durant goes on to be an MVP in the NBA and they don't win a championship, I believe he'll be all right with his career. He's got GIANNIS, he's got Joel Embiid. They got all that competition. Boston eventually is going to have a championship caliber team. So we don't know the storylines. We don't know who they might lose to in the finals. What if he does like LeBron, where he's not able to get the one championship LeBron did in Cleveland, but he takes his team to the finals and he does 38, 8, and we're like, oh, no, he's not justified unless he wins a title in Brooklyn? No, these guys are already champions. We can't keep moving the finish line on guys. Like, that's typically when you come in the league, is this guy going to be a starter? But like, oh, is he going to be an all-star? Oh, is he going to ever lead his team? Oh, is he going to be an MVP candidate? Oh, and can he win a championship? Most time in NBA, it's about winning championships. But then after you do that, you know what people do?
How many more?
Oh, but yeah, they move it. But because if you've already reached that goal, these guys have individual goals, and I believe they're going to accomplish a lot. I don't believe championship is the thing that validates them. If they have a great run of 4, 5, 6 years, if Kyrie can stay healthy, if Kevin Durant can stay healthy, because those things we don't know what's going to happen. So if Kyrie gets hurt, then Kevin Durant's chance to win the championship, they aren't good. But now we're saying his legacy hinges on one of his teammates, and we just can't continually move the finish line for professional athletes.
And Kawhi is the person that looms over all of this, because unless Kawhi picks the Clippers, which I think is the least likely at this point, either decision Kawhi makes puts the Nets and KD and Kyrie in potentially a rough spot. If he goes to the Lakers, then all of a sudden KD is potentially, if he makes, when he comes back, makes an NBA Finals, up against the type of situation he joined, where it's like, man, I could average a triple-double in the finals like LeBron did. I could average 35 a game in the finals like LeBron did and lose 8-1 over the course of 2 years because the other team is so much better. And if Kawhi stays out east, well, then they got to get through Kawhi and the Raptors just to make the NBA Finals, whoever comes out west. This is why I've never been a count the rings guy. You and I, we talk all the time about LeBron versus Jordan. Stuff like this is when, to me, the best argument for Jordan is what we were talking about before the show today. We were thinking about the best rookie seasons ever. Michael Jordan, first year in the league. How about he gives you 28, 6, and 6? Just immediately. Rookie season, just a dominant player. That, to me, I don't want to say that's more impressive than one of the rings, but it's stuff like that that validates guys' individual greatness, because championships are team accomplishments. Like you mentioned it. It's not Rafa Nadal. It's not one-on-one where you control everything. And so I understand the question, because for Kevin Durant, it's the only accomplishment left. The only thing left for him is a championship outside of the incubator of Golden State.
Sure.
But we're talking about degrees of greatness in my eyes.
So let me just tweak this a little bit. Take the championships out of it. How good are these two players? And we talk a lot about their personalities and how they'll fit, especially with the rest of the team and how they get along. But as far as an offensive combo, how good are these two? What can you expect to see on the court?
Kyrie Irving's the best dribbler of the basketball God has ever made. He can dribble the basketball on the court in the games. I'm not talking about no street ball and everything. I'm talking about NBA regulations, referee. He's the best handle. Isaiah Thomas tells us that he has the best handle ever. And we thought Zeke had the best handle until we met Kyrie. He can score the basketball at a high level. He's a tremendous offensive player. Kevin Durant is the best offensive player to me in the NBA when he is 100%. He's the only person legitimately to me that would be fighting LeBron James as far as the best player ever. Him, Kawhi, LeBron, that's the only group right there. Kevin Durant, he's the most efficient scorer ever, and they can play well together. And people love to play with their friends. LeBron wanted to play with Melo, wanted to play with Chris Paul, was never able to pull it off, was able to do it with Dwayne Wade. So they're a special combination, and if they want to be together, I expect even to see some better basketball than what we've seen from them.
Chris's point shouldn't be lost. You've got one guy who is, I don't want to say universally considered, but universally in the argument for best ball handler ever, and one of the most creative guys under the rim we've ever seen. And then Durant, I can't call him the best scorer ever, but most efficient mid-range guy of his size. It's not even question. There's no question about it. And so you have those two guys coming together, basketball-wise, might actually be a bit of a better fit than Kyrie and LeBron were, because LeBron is so much more of a distributor than KD, needs the ball a little bit more than KD needs it. KD can distribute great for a guy of his size, but he's not the distributor LeBron is. So I think the fit is excellent. But I also think for Brooklyn, this is one of those things where it gets late early. And by that I mean these guys are on 4-year deals. They both have opt-outs after year 3. So year 1, we're crossing off. So we are going to be looking at the 21 season and the 22 season. How good is this combo? There's not a ton they're not two rookies. It's not Shaq and Penny coming together at the beginning of their careers. They are already in the primes of their career. The next time we see KD, he'll probably be 32 years old coming off an Achilles. So when they do play together, the fit that in our mind's eye we see, that needs to show up almost instantaneously for them to be able to get through Giannis and Embiid and Kawhi if he's still there, whatever Boston turns into. Indiana's trying to be a relevant team. Miami got Jimmy Butler. So all those things are relevant, which is why it could be successful without them winning a championship. Just not the level of success KD and Kyrie went there for, KD in particular.
Here we go. Stories to start your morning sticking with Kawhi. According to the aforementioned Cris Broussard, the Claw is doing some deep soul searching between the Lakers and the Raptors, which means it is the Clippers who are odd men out. See, at this point, is there any reason why Kawhi would pick the Clippers?
Yeah. I mean, if you know Kawhi Leonard, Kawhi said it's not as important that there's other players on the court. And what he did last year in Toronto with a proven coach who he has a great deal of respect for. They have an overall defensive mentality a lot like Toronto, and they got a lot of respect for Jerry West. So, yeah, I could see him going to the Clippers because the Clippers are Toronto, but out west.
So if he picks the Clippers, because everyone agrees right now is these 3 rosters is presently constituted without Kawhi, the Clippers are the weakest. And so if he picks the Clippers, to me what that will mean is the draw of Southern California was enormous, but he was not able to get over the trust deficit with what's happened with the Lakers. That he didn't feel like he could trust the Lakers for this portion of his career, but he wanted to get to LA, which was his goal when he initially demanded the trade out of San Antonio. To me, that's what this would signal. I don't think it's likely, but that's what it would mean.
All right, moving on to free agent Danny Green. When asked if the Lakers could be a potential landing spot, Green simply said, they have two expletive superstars. It speaks for itself. Nick, how big of a role could Danny Green play for the Lakers?
If they don't get Kawhi, if they get Kawhi and they were able to get him with the mid-level, that would be unbelievable. But let's just assume no Kawhi. If they were to get Danny Green, he was one of the top free agent targets we listed before this whole process started if they missed out on the superstars. Excellent defender, spectacular three-point shooter, coming off his best three-point shooting season of his career at 45%. He and Kuzma could kind of almost alternate in that third scorer role depending on the night.
Yes.
He is the exact type of player they need, especially if they don't land Kawhi. It would be outstanding.
Yeah, he's the kind of player he needs because he's also going to help in the backcourt.
Yep.
LeBron's not going to be able to log all those minutes. Him and LeBron can switch off between the 1 and the 2. LeBron will be very, very comfortable. You mentioned the shooting locker room. He is a glue guy for the locker rooms. Him and LeBron have experience with his young part of his career getting started there in Cleveland when he played for a number of different teams.
All right, moving on to the Women's World Cup. Now the U.S. is going for the record 4th trophy. They'll look to take down the Netherlands. Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern on Fox. See, you expect the U.S. to coast past the Dutch?
No, I never believe in championships being able to coast. Anytime as an athlete you don't have respect for the opposition, and they have made it to a World Cup final, so you realize they have played some great soccer. They've played the greatest soccer this club has ever played. It would be one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. I don't think they have two starters that could start for our team. I mean, we have a deep team. We're really, really talented, and you could see that in the quarterfinals and the semifinals. So I believe that our women are going to take this match seriously after getting through France and England in those last two matches.
A $100 bet on the Dutch nets you around $600. The U.S. are massive, massive favorites. Here's what I expect. I expect the U.S. for the first time since the group stage to play a full, complete 90-minute game. I didn't think they played their best game against France. Rapinoe saved them. I thought that they defensively had some lapses against England. We got very fortunate on the penalty kick save and on one offsides call. If they play a full 90-minute game, they should not only win, they should win by a couple of goals. The Dutch, according to all the experts on Dutch soccer, of which I am not one, they do not have the horses in this one.
Well, good news for you. I can't do a Dutch accent. So
Okay,
you
good. I don't even know what that would sound like.
Ending with Eli Manning, the 38-year-old quarterback who's gearing up for another season of football, first saw his top target, Odell Beckham, traded to Cleveland, then watched his replacement, Daniel Jones, get drafted 6th overall. But Eli is staying the course heading into season 16, saying, quote, "I'm not rushing into retirement." CC, what do you make of Eli's comments?
This is something I know that when I left the NFL after 16 years, it was a 99.9% chance I'll never have a better job than that. And most NFL players, they realize that. And at the end of your career, staying in that locker room and still being able to compete, man, it's always a challenge. But no one's in a rush to retire. It's one of the great jobs. It's one of the great titles he'll ever have in his life. Starting quarterback for the New York Football Giants. 2-time Super Bowl champion. That's how he gets introduced everywhere he goes. Why would you be in a rush? Now, Eli hadn't played great football, even though Dave Gettleman said he's seen him play some great football. I haven't seen it. I watch NFL films. I watch every highlight show. I watch every morsel of football. And to me, Eli has not played great football. So I do understand what Eli is saying. When they draft a kid in the first round, you can't come to minicamp and be like, yeah, I'm looking at retirement. Because as soon as you have a bad game, people be like, you're not focused. So he's playing that game. I know that I got to hold this guy off. Eli Manning is not. He believes he can play more football, even if it's not with the New York Football Giants. And given the success, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Roethlisberger, they are not in a rush to quit. I don't know why we keep asking this. Tom Brady 2 years ago. Oh, man, Tom Brady's got a great life. He's getting ready to quit. Yeah, right. He's been to 3 Super Bowls in a row. He brags about how his wife makes more money than him, but he signed up for at least another season and not looking back. Why should Eli Manning? Why should he? And even if you don't like him, don't think he should be the starting quarterback, why should Eli Manning give up one of the rare jobs that you can ever have in the world?
Well, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. You'd like to go out sort of on even somewhere close to the high that you were when you...
That's all make-believe. Didn't we just do a Disney movie advertising? That's all Disney.
Right, but maybe that was 2 years ago. The further you get from that, you don't think that taints his reputation at all?
Well, listen, he's going to, almost to your point, he's going to now, we would imagine, unless the Giants all of a sudden have a much better year than we expect, end up with his career with a losing record in the regular season. That's what the last few years have done. I think he's 2 games over 500 as we sit here today. And so unless Daniel Jones starts week 1 or unless the Giants are way better than anyone expects, I think that's to your point. But his legacy is those 2 Super Bowls and who those 2 Super Bowls came against. And the 2 highlights we will see forever. That those spinning away from Patriot defenders, throwing the pass to David Tyree, the helmet catch, and the dime to Mario Manningham in 2011. One of the best throws and one of the biggest spots in any football game
and the
ever
slant
played.
and go to Plaxico Burress.
Absolutely, for the touchdown after the helmet catch in 07.
Yes.
So those are there. And you mentioned these other quarterbacks. I'm going to mention a different older quarterback, his brother, which is he saw his brother, people question whether or not he was finished, go to a different team, win an MVP.
As a non-factor,
win an MVP, not as a non-factor.
Oh, the next year.
Win an MVP and go to 2 Super Bowls, the last one when he was really on his last legs, but win it. And so when Cris said, you kind of said it in passing, for the Giants or for someone else, I think that is for the audience. I think you got to recognize that is the mindset of these great players is, listen, I'm going to win this job. I know they drafted Daniel Jones, play him eventually, but I'm going to play so well this year, they have a tough decision. And if they decide to go with the young guy, maybe someone else will decide they want me. Now, that's what Eli thinks. What I think is Eli's been done for 2-3 seasons, and Daniel Jones is going to get that job. But of course, he thinks he can keep going. He's always going to think he can keep going. Probably, Brett Favre was rumored to be thinking about it. He's been out for 7 years. It's been rumored that he was going to come back. So none of that should be surprising.
All right, let's switch gears. All eyes on Summer League action tonight. Literally something I've never said before. But when Zion Williamson makes his debut for all to see, it's pretty much must watch. Pelicans' #1 overall pick will be going up against former Duke teammate and now Knicks savior, R.J. Barrett. The 18-year-old Zion has been waiting for this moment his whole life, saying, quote, "This is the part you dream about when you're a kid." All right, Nick, what has to happen for Zion to really be a star?
Well, if we're talking about long-term star, let's just assume health, because obviously injuries can derail anybody. But assuming health, I think what has to happen, we are already on track for, which is being an organization that's not going to try to microwave the process, that's going to make off-season moves that have him in mind and his development in mind, meaning they have supplemented their roster, but they have not gone out of their way to add veterans at his position that are going to be expecting minutes. They went out and prioritized J.J. Redick in free agency, knowing he's a guy who's going to need spacing on the court. Monty Williams is a guy or Alvin Gentry, pardon me, is a guy they have enormous confidence in his ability to play at a pace that will help Zion Williamson, and surrounding him with young talent that can exacerbate in a good way his positive qualities, his athleticism, his help side defense, his ability to get out in the break, while filling in the blanks with veterans who will do the things he can't do. So those are the things that need to happen early in a player's career. Because I don't believe a player I think it's very, very difficult to see for a player to become a superstar immediately. But you can be derailed. You can be taken off track like D'Angelo Russell was in the Lakers through his own doing or the organization's doing, to where it takes a couple years for you to re-find your footing to get back on the trajectory we thought you'd be on. So right now, I think the Pelicans have done all the things you would want them to do if you were saying put Zion in the best possible position to reach his maximum potential.
You guys know I talk about it all the time. I believe in institutional success. And that's mean putting the right people, putting the building blocks around building a foundation around the house compared to, you know something, let's put a roof on it and let's just sell it to the people. And that with David Griffin and the ownership with the Benson. Mr. Benson passed away. His wife took over, and people questioned, will they be able to concentrate and run the Pelicans the way they've run and had success with the Saints? They've done a tremendous job from the beginning, keeping Gentry, hiring Griff, and the moves that Griff has made, even when they won the lottery. Griff didn't say they were going to draft Zion.
Right.
I mean, it was very strategic, the roster that he put around him. And then you mentioned some of the pieces. I believe some of the pieces that might be even more vital are guys that came out of situations. Ingram, he's from Duke, top 5 draft pick. The organization gave up on him already. How to work on your skills. Now, his body frame, from one standpoint, is at the other end of the spectrum, is Zion. Ball, everything he's dealt with, the media attention, his family, an organization. Oh, we're going to put you in the rafters on the first day. So those expectations, the rosters that they have, talent-wise, experience-wise, and also common things. Guy from Duke, a guy top 5 pick. I believe all these things really get Zion off to a head start on being, because this is what people get mixed up. Don't try to be a superstar. You need to be an all-star first before you become a superstar and keep things in the right order. He's off to a great start.
So tonight's game, this is a primetime game. This is a sold-out game. Tickets are going for upwards of $400 to watch him play. Do you remember another more anticipated Summer League game? I mean, who was the last one that came out that played Summer League and people couldn't get a ticket to see?
LeBron D. Wade, but that was before Summer League was the giant thing it is now. Summer League really has exploded in the last 5 years as far as interest and excitement. A few years ago, remember Lonzo De'Aaron Fox in Summer League, and then Lonzo didn't play, and people were questioning why he didn't play. Summer League, though, there isn't really a precedent for this because it's kind of like the NFL Combine in that it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of the years, even if there were hype prospects. But listen, Zion's going to be dealing with the most hype of any guy his rookie season since LeBron.
But is that good or bad for him? So my point was, do you think it's good for him to see that people can't get a ticket to watch him play Summer League? And does that help him?
This is what he should expect. If he was dreaming of being a star, this is what I try to tell you all the time. Hey, guys, those dreams come with the ingredients to handle this kind of stuff. It's not no big deal. He came from Duke. They got the star treatment no matter where they were. And we have seen this. You talked about Jordan. You went back to Wilt, Oscar Robertson. When you are a generational talent, all that stuff does not matter, because it's amazing how the attributes that come with handling that ability come with these great athletes. And I believe that Zion, we have seen how he's handled it. I believe this, because he's got the institutional support, he will be able to handle it. But typically, it comes on the insides with these guys.
And if you guys remember the highlights we ran 2 years ago, I guess it would have been, when he was in high school. Those were high school games for a much less mature person because he was 16, 17 years old. Standing room only high school games to see him. He dealt with that. Duke was a travel, I don't want to say circus, but you talk about traveling with Jordans like traveling with the Beatles. Duke was the most followed college basketball team we've had maybe since the Runnin' Rebels in the early 90s, late 80s. I'm trying to think of another, the Fab Five with Michigan. The level of interest at every step, and he's dealt with it all. I watched his press conference after Duke got knocked out of the tournament, and he's supporting teammates. He's acting like an elder statesman.
Right.
Zion does seem to have the makeup for this, and it's not out of nowhere. It has been building to this level for quite some time.
My concern is, what's the proper weight for him? He's listed at 285. He looks like he's around 300 right now. You can't continue to fluctuate with your weight, and regardless of what ability he has, getting up and down the court with 300 pounds and doing that for over 10 years, that could be a problem. So I know he's an unusual size and an explosiveness. I understand that. But what's going to be the proper weight for him to play at and for him to be able to discover that as quick as possible?
Back here, first things first. Look who's here. Sports Illustrated senior NBA writer Chris Mannix.
What up, Mannix?
If people could see behind the scenes how rapidly you guys get ready to go on the air, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
how you flip a switch,
we're good.
right there.
Yeah, no, this is
good to see you.
Don't tell the family business.
I'm just saying, it's
I was wondering what he was going to say.
I had no idea.
Compliment. It was a compliment.
We appreciate it. No, thank you.
Jenna's out there
I need
on
you to
Etsy
sign
doing stuff.
Jenna's not on Etsy. I can't believe you knew that Etsy was. Kawhi Leonard, Mannix, has reportedly narrowed his decision down to the Lakers and Raptors, and though most would love the opportunity to play with arguably the best player of all time in LeBron James, well, Kawhi's just trying to carve out a legacy of his own, and the shadow of the king could hinder that. But according to a report, LeBron would be willing to, quote, pass the torch to Kawhi. Chris, you buying LeBron can and would pass the torch to Kawhi Leonard?
First, I don't really know what that means necessarily. Is he willing to
maybe take a lesser role?
I mean, willing to get let Kawhi take a leading role in the same way that Dwayne Wade let LeBron take a leading role down in Miami in the early 2010s. I can see that. I mean, look, LeBron knows that his window is closing. He's got maybe 3 years left to kind of be an alpha on a championship team, and Kawhi Leonard represents his best chance to win a championship. So do I buy that LeBron is okay, not averaging 25 plus, not being an MVP candidate? Yeah, I do buy that. However, I don't know that it's ever not going to be the LeBron show. Wherever LeBron is at, he is going to be the focal point of that team. So no matter what he says, I don't think in reality it can actually come to fruition.
You're talking, when you say the LeBron show, you mean from noise, media, question, things like that, not necessarily the 48 minutes.
Not necessarily on the court, yeah.
So LeBron has quietly evolved his game over the last 3 years. There's 3 seasons in his career he's averaged 8+ rebounds. It's the last 3 seasons. There's 4 seasons in his career he's averaged 8+ assists. It's the last 3 seasons plus 2010. He's gone to a more distributor kind of do everything role on the offensive end. But he's had the necessity to be a high-level scorer 2 years ago in Cleveland because they had traded away Kyrie. They had no one else. And last year with the Lakers because there wasn't another scorer you could rely on. There wasn't another all-star on the roster. I think LeBron has been ready to transition more to point guard-ish play for a while and has not had the roster to do it. Now, I don't know that means end of game, I'll just go stand in the corner. I don't think that's ever been who he is. But he also... It was 2016 in the timeout, tie game. See, what did he tell Ty Lue? Let the kid take the shot. Kyrie wanted it in Game 7, and LeBron signed off on it. So he's never been a selfish player. He's always been more equipped for a secondary role than a guy like Kobe, who always had the mentality of, it has to be me, it has to be through me. But I believe LeBron would go into next year as the best player on the team, or he and Kawhi are just neck and neck as close as you can get. And I think you are typically best if your best player is your leading decision maker. That doesn't mean your leading scorer. That doesn't mean the guy that takes the most shots, but the guy who is dictating the offense. And as great as Kawhi is, the one part of his game that is not fully evolved, if you will, is playmaking. So I see a lot of LeBron facilitating, LeBron figuring things out. Is that taking a lesser role? I guess that depends on who you're asking and what it means.
When have we seen this before? Was this like a Kareem Magic kind of thing? I mean, historically, how do you even put this in perspective of 2 superstars, this talent and caliber we haven't really seen play together, and one passing the torch to another?
Yeah, this is very difficult. When you are a superstar like LeBron James, the one thing that does help him is that in his DNA, he is a natural passer of the basketball. So what I can go on is a couple things. Shaq, at an early age, when he was teammates with LeBron, said, man, he's a basketball savant, Chris. His memory, memorizing stuff. Oh, man, see, he knows things that coaches say the sets and the LeBron telling him, and he taking over practice. I'm like, damn, where we get this boy from? He never played with a guy that's so smart, see? But that's the way he explained his overall building understanding of basketball. One of LeBron, in the highest percentage of critics that he has, it comes from, oh, he's so unselfish. Oh, you know something? He's not like Michael Jordan. And if he was like Michael Jordan, this would be a different conversation. I would try to tell you guys, hey, man, Kawhi need to go somewhere else. Because Michael Jordan right now, he still think he can take Kevin Durant, LeBron, one-on-one. And that's not going to change. LeBron, he's not that way. And I know for a fact, let LeBron, in his conversations with Kawhi, he was expressing things like this. And LeBron is not a guy that he would not tell Kawhi the truth. And you could see him playing. LeBron still has room to grow his game. He can still get in the post. LeBron can be, if you want to play small ball and put LeBron at the 4 or the 5 later in his career, but this is the natural transition for LeBron James. If he wants to play 20, 21 years, he needs somebody because you know something? In practice, he can't hang with Kawhi every day. He sees that. That was the one thing. Denny Green didn't have to tell me, hey, Chris, you know something? We're going to turn this over to Randy Moss. I trained with him. Shit, I knew. I knew what was getting ready to happen. LeBron is a smart guy. He just didn't get stupid overnight. He understands Anthony Davis. He understands the Lakers, their legacy. He understands Kawhi. You know what he can do with Kawhi? Hey, Kawhi, I don't care who they play. Kawhi, go out and get that guy.
Right.
James Harden, go get him.
Go guard that guy every night. And
Damian Lillard, go get him.
And Kawhi's always done that. And by the way, I would argue just quickly, that when we had seen in the regular season his last healthy year with the Spurs and last year in Toronto, there's a reason Kawhi was all of a sudden out of Defensive Player of the Year discussions, because in the regular season, when he became the go-to guy offensively, he had to take a lesser role defensively. If you have Anthony Davis and LeBron, he still might be the go-to guy offensively, but it's such a lesser pressure offensively. He can really be the claw defensively that we had seen him in the playoffs and early in his career.
And he benefited, and Kawhi benefited from having Pascal Siakam there, who could just absorb that defensive role. I do think that a fair comparable is what happened in Miami. I mean, remember in Miami that first year, it kind of was a tug of war between LeBron and Dwayne Wade over kind of whose team was it, who was going to be the alpha with that team. They still had tremendous success, but they lost in the finals. I mean, Dwayne said this many times. After that year, he decided that I'm going to take a step back, that I'm going to allow LeBron kind of to be the alpha on this team, and it paid dividends. Like that type of selflessness, if you want to call it that, I think can work effectively with Kawhi.
Just real quick, I'm going to bring up a team you're very familiar with, though, that did work in year one, 2008 Celtics, and it was because the 3 stars they got all were very different players, very different roles. We knew what KG's role was, you knew what Ray Allen's role was, you knew what Paul Pierce's role was, and it instantly worked. The reason that, to me, this big 3 is the potential to be so special, there's so little redundancy. There's so little of what Anthony Davis does best is the same thing. No. What LeBron does best
no
is
overlapping.
There's minimal overlapping that you can have with great players at different positions. And so that in that regard, it reminds me of the 08 Celtics.
The one counter to that, though, is that those Celtics got together, and the one thing they had going for them was that none of them had won a championship.
Right.
And that they
would all sacrifice.
They knew this was it. Like, this was their only chance to put together either one or more championships, and that was really influential in that
And
team.
I think the glue behind this could be Kawhi's personality. He's not as needy. Anthony Davis, not as needy as LeBron. That's what probably makes this go like what the Celtics have.
Back here at Chris Mannix, nothing says Friday night like NBA Summer League.
Yeah.
Woo! Tonight, it's the much-anticipated debut of Zion Williamson. Pelicans' #1 overall pick will be going up against former Duke teammate and now Knicks savior R.J. Barrett. The 18-year-old Zion has been waiting for this moment his whole life, saying, quote, "This is the part you dream about as a kid." Mannix, what has to happen for Zion to be a star?
I tell you, that game is going to be packed in the Thomas and Mack Center tonight. Like, that will be close to sold out tonight in the Thomas and Mack Center.
It's already sold out.
It's already sold out?
Tickets are, up to $400
It's going to be wild in there for a Summer League game where only 2 guys are on the shelf. For Zion to become a star, it's the same with every other player that gets drafted high. The jump shot. Like, how effective is he from 3-point range? Because
I like it. He's not in the courting, dating, and everything. Listen,
just go right
let's
to
get
it.
to the business.
Well, like that's
all right.
That's it. Like that's what it boils down to. Like I think he's physically going to be impressive. I think defensively he's going to be impressive. I think athletically he already is impressive. But can he develop that type of range? Now we assume that you can spend some time as a stretch 5. That's what a lot of scouts have told me, that they will see Zion playing the 5 at different points in his career. If he can step out and at least be a threat. Doesn't have to be this effective, like 40% three-point shooter, but if he can be a threat from three-point range, his athleticism is going to make him downright dangerous. So to me, it just boils down to, can he be a dangerous three-point shooter?
So the stretch 5 thing, I would take some issue with those scouts to a degree, because he is not. I compare him to Blake Griffin at times as far as his game coming out of Oklahoma, the athleticism, big body, but he's 3 inches shorter than Blake. I mean, Zion's 6'7"-ish. And so I know Draymond plays the 5 at times. Draymond is also, though, has all-time defensive instincts that help him. He makes the play before he can make the play, despite his limited athleticism and height. So I don't know how much 5 you could see him play in big spots. But I agree with you, that's the part of his game that needs to be rounded out. Now, he doesn't come into the league with no jump shot whatsoever. This isn't Giannis, but Giannis, by the way, was the 15th pick, the 14th pick. He did not have the hype. He was 6 points a game his rookie year, and he was rail thin. This isn't Ben Simmons, a guy who refused to shoot in college, just like he has in the NBA. We saw Zion have a passable set shot at Duke, that three-point shot in the low 30 percentages. Now, he's going to have to change that shot. That set shot he's not going to be able to get off in the NBA. But you're totally right, for him to become the league MVP candidate that I think he's projected to be, that's the part of his game that's missing. But for him to be a star his rookie year, he just needs to do the things he already does well. And he just needs to be put in a position to do those things. Get out in transition, help side defense, offensive rebound, and go bang on people like that. He will come into the league as one of the 5 best athletes in the NBA immediately. That I truly believe. And I think he can average 18-plus points a game without the jump shot. It's the jump shot that would then make him, take him, as you would say, from fringe all-star to that superstar tier, which is where I think all of us project him to be eventually.
Are you worried at all about his weight? I know you touched on it a little earlier, and we kind of glossed over it, like, oh, when the season starts, he'll be ready to go. But you had some concerns earlier.
I worry about all kids when they get their grown man body, how they handle that.
What does that mean?
Well, it's been proven that a man between the ages of 20 and 30, his body's going to mature a couple different times. And in doing that, does he have the discipline? Because, yeah, I know he can play with that weight now. Let's say he gets 5 years in the NBA, get a couple playoff series under his belt, start playing internationally, play for the Olympic team. You know, can he start to handle it when he gets in his mid-20s? Charles Barkley would have been a better player if he could have stayed in shape. Shaq, he'll tell you, he would have been a better player. He would have had less injuries if he would have been at a comfortable playing weight. We've seen other great players where they don't manage this part. This is just as important as his jump shot. The one thing I do disagree with you at, right now, if Zion is on the basketball court, you cannot run up on him because you know he will explode past you. So that set shot is going to be the first thing that's available for him outside of getting outside in transition. I do believe we're going to always watch Zion. We have to watch him, though, as a developing player compared to the first-round pick. Because look at the other players, the expectations we put on that number 1 pick. But ultimately, if you're just trying to listen, one thing, MANNIX got it from the beginning. All the rest of this is just, I'm not trying to say the same thing as him. I'm not trying to say the same thing as someone else. If he does not develop a jump shot, it will be hard for him. Nick Saban talks about the different levels of development, and a lot of people get satisfied with being good. But if you want to be elite, if you want to be special, it takes special types of discipline to be able to get there.
Yeah, and physically, I'm more interested in what he looks like between his first and second years. That's usually in the NBA when guys just reshape their bodies entirely. When they go through an entire season, they work with strength coaches, and those strength coaches identify what needs to change, and they come back in that second training camp.
Yeah, they typically don't have enough time between the NBA combine, the draft, going to summer league, and then the season's getting ready. It's
September training camp rolls around, you can't do it. What benefits Zion and his potential to become a star is that a lot of guys that land in this number 1 spot wind up in dysfunctional franchises in different organizations. He is stepping in to one of the more functional bad franchises that you're going to find. The Pelicans are completely different than what they were in the last couple of years. David Griffin has reshaped that team, and he signed guys that should benefit Zion. I mean, you bring in like a J.J. Redick type that'll teach not only professionalism in the locker room, but be a shooter on the outside. You have Alvin Gentry, who is a disciple of the Mike D'Antoni offense, who's going to play up and down and play to the strengths of Zion Williamson. I think his growth and his ability to become that superstar is going to be accelerated greatly by the fact that he's with that team and with the structure that it provides.
2 quick points. One on that. Chris said, you said it before the show, and I was trying to think since then, does he walk into the best position a #1 overall pick has walked into since Duncan with the Spurs? As far as infrastructure, coach, GM, and roster, where you are usually have the #1 overall pick because you were a travesty, because the team was awful. There's the rare instance where the Magic get it when they already have Shaq, but that's once a generation, if that. The other part of this that I want to add, he will come into the league better defensively than any player that I can remember that was not drafted just because of defense. You have a guy like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, drafted #2 overall, saying he'll figure out he's drafted only because of what he was defensively. Zion's drafted because he's such a great offensive player, but usually rookies are in totally over their head defensively. I don't think that'll be the case for Zion. I think he will be a positive defender on the weak side from day one.
Also watch tonight, and it's just something people just take for granted. Watch the energy Zion plays with. Every game I've ever watched him play, high school, be in college, anything, he always plays with a high level of intensity. Going after rebounds, trying to block shots, out in the fast break. That's one of those special qualities that I believe we see first time tonight, and it continues throughout a great NBA career.
Quickly, to your point about the defensive aspect, offensively, he's going to benefit from Alvin Gentry. Defensively, the Pelicans have an assistant, Darren Erman, who's one of the best defensive assistants in basketball. He is going to bring out, I think, a lot of the pluses in Zion defensively.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. While his season ended sooner than he would have liked, it was quite a season for him. The Greek Freak had career highs in points, in rebounds, and assists per game, all while carrying the Bucks to 60 wins. It was enough to win him MVP honors, and early odds have Giannis as the favorite to win it again. Nick, how much pressure is on Giannis to get the Bucks to the finals next season?
There's enormous pressure on Giannis because he is now to the exact point in his career where after we have spent year after year after year building him up, building him up, building him up.
He's here.
It is now where you're here, and the moment you go backwards or just stay the same, we start to question. We start to pick you apart. Well, how good is he really? Well, yeah, we know he won the MVP and they won 60 games. Remember how last season ended? 4 straight losses. Kawhi snatched it from him, had everything in front of you. Look at what happened to the Warriors. You had a championship right there for the taking, couldn't do it. This is the time where, and this is what great players go through. LeBron went through this. Kevin Durant went through this. It ended up running him out of OKC. And Giannis is of that caliber, of that tier. There's the guys that win early. And by win, I mean win a title. Kobe won early. Now, he had Shaq with him, but he won early, so no one could ever, even those 3 straight years they didn't win a series and 1 year they missed the playoffs, nobody questioned, could he be a champion? Kawhi won early. No one was going to, if they had lost in the second round to the Sixers, I don't think anyone serious was going to say, oh, Kawhi can't be a champion. We know it. Most guys don't win early. Most guys do get drafted, as we've discussed, to bad teams where they have to build around them. So there is enormous pressure on Giannis, but there is equal, if not greater, pressure on the Bucks organization. Because if they go backwards instead of forwards, if they don't make the NBA Finals, then they will run the risk of the storyline a year from now will be, is Giannis going to accept the $250 million contract extension they can offer him? And if he doesn't, with just 1 year left on his deal after this season, should they start shopping him a la Anthony Davis? So enormous pressure on Giannis, even more pressure on the Bucks because he's the best player the franchise has had since Lou Alcindor. So they need to do, and that's why they did what they did this offseason, do everything they can to go at least one step further. Make the NBA Finals in a year. You're not going to have to go through Durant out east, and you might not have to go through Kawhi Leonard out east.
Yeah, I hope Giannis does it a little bit different. When the NBA awards were given out this season, we realized, man, the Europe's is here in the NBA. The Europeans dominated the awards.
Yeah.
And Giannis is the leader in doing that. Giannis needs to continue the same pace that he's been growing at. Giannis's only problem is he ran into Kawhi. If Kawhi wasn't in Toronto, we wouldn't be talking about it. And Giannis is very fortunate. I don't know why. I'm sure Nick probably has a reason for this. But if that had happened to LeBron or KD or Steph, we would have been criticizing them every single day, every single show across America. Somehow, we've given Giannis a pass.
You're talking about being up 2-0 and then losing 4 straight.
Yeah, that's what we should be talking about. How they allowed him, we're going to give you open shots. Why hasn't his game developed even more? Yeah, he had an MVP regular season, but we crucified those guys. When they had that little tink in their armor, we crucified. Giannis, we've given him a pass. For some reason, I don't know why. I think Giannis is a special guy. I believe his relationship with Milwaukee is special. I don't believe he's going to leave Milwaukee. So I don't think there's added pressure. I believe there's the continuing pressure to continue to grow. If Kawhi decides to go back to Toronto, there is no need for them to be trying to rest on last year's success because they will have that fresh wound of losing home court advantage, losing 4 in a row, and now they're not the favorite in the Eastern Conference. So Kawhi comes there back for a year in Toronto. They got problems. They're going to have problems with KD over the next couple years. Him and Kyrie. Joel Embiid is not going anywhere. They don't have an answer for him. So, man, there's enough other things that the Bucks have to worry about in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they should be worried about losing Giannis based on all the things that he said and the supporting cast that they put around him.
So, Nick, handicap the Bucks for me. Are they just rolling it back with who they had last year? I know there were some offseason changes, but if there's pressure on him and more on the Bucks, where does Milwaukee stand
listen,
now?
they lost Brogdon. They gave Bledsoe a big extension. They extended Brook Lopez. They gave Chris Middleton essentially the max. They've got, like I said, carved out $250 million for Giannis. They didn't think they could also pay Brogdon $21 million. Mirotic decided to go back over to Europe. I don't know if they're going to bring him back either way. But aside from Brogdon, all of their key pieces are back. And Mirotic, while he's a good player, he's the type of player that you might be able to fill that role via the buyout market, similar to what Philly did with Ersan Ilyasova a year ago, where you can find somebody.
Yeah, he's great for an 82-game schedule, becomes a little bit limited once you get into the playoffs.
Right, and you saw that in the series against Toronto. And so the Mirotic thing's not a big deal. Where they get better is Eric Bledsoe becomes a better offensive player in those big moments. They paid him. They could have paid Brogdon. They decided to pay him early instead of pay Brogdon early, so they are tied to him. Middleton, I don't think, is going to play better than he did last year. He maintains, and then Giannis. And Giannis develops a more, I can't even say more consistent, a semi-consistent outside shot. Can he shoot 31% from 3? Can he be a guy that you don't just dare to take open threes? To answer your, go ahead, C.
I wish he can get an intermediate game.
Sure.
I think everyone's obviously going to say, oh, yeah, improve his three-point shooting. Well, everyone, we want them to improve their three-point shooting. But if he can get to that mid-range game, there is no defense for there. Kevin Durant's one of the few people. Middleton on this team, one of the few people. You don't need just to shoot three-pointers. That intermediate game, he's special at the rim. His ability to be able to stretch the defense now is there. That intermediate between 5 and 18 feet, let's develop that. Then he becomes unstoppable.
But to answer your question, why Giannis was not subjected to the type of criticism other guys would have been, when Kevin Durant and the Thunder made the NBA Finals in 2012 and went up 1-0 and then lost 4 straight, nobody killed him. It was like, oh, it's the beginning of something.
Right.
When LeBron and the Cavs, now this was very young LeBron, he's 21 years old, goes to the NBA Finals against the San Antonio Spurs and they get swept, no one killed him for that. It was then the following year, when you don't get back to that place, when people start to pick away at you, that's where Giannis is. This was the free pass year, if you will. Yeah. It's like you won 6 games, you won an MVP. A lot of people said the reason they weren't picking the Bucks, even though I did, is it's a process. You get to this level and then go backwards. But if they got to this level, and next year they're at that level, and then it's like, oh, and Kevin Durant's going to be around the year after, and Phil, all those things, that's where it gets very anxious for Milwaukee.
Time now for stores to start your morning. According to our guy Chris Broussard, Kawhi.
His mouth just wrote a check that he's going to have to cash.
Kawhi Leonard is doing some. Start checking your Twitter feed. See, start doing some deep soul searching between the Lakers and the Raptors. What does that mean? That means the Clippers are on the outs. See, at this point, is there any reason why Kawhi should pick the Clippers?
Okay, first, that's other people reporting that the Clippers are out. That's not Chris Carter reporting.
You're sticking with that it's still a 3-team race as of when you went to bed last night.
I'm not sticking to anything. I'm just going to repeat something. They told me all 3 teams were currently still with the opportunity to be able to land Kawhi's basketball playing ability. So the Clippers, Doc Rivers, Jerry West, Steve Ballmer, from the beginning, outside of Toronto, those are the people that they had the most admiration and trust and potential interest in moving forward from a business standpoint.
If Kawhi signs with the Clippers, to me, it will be a clear indication that the Lakers were not able to overcome, I'm not going to be here anymore. There's backstabbing, Linda Rambis, the coaching search, because signing with the Clippers will mean the lure of going to Southern California trumped the ability to try to defend the title in Toronto, and to pick the Clippers to do it with when the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis will mean it's about trust, and it will show you the true cost the Lakers had to pay for what happened this offseason. If he stays with Toronto, that's not an indictment on the Lakers. If he picks the Clippers, to me, it would be an indictment on the Lakers.
All right, all eyes on Summer League action tonight. I've never said that before, but when Zion Williamson makes his debut for all to see, it's pretty must-watch. Pelicans' #1 overall pick will be going up against Duke teammate and now Knicks savior R.J. Barrett. Nick, what has to happen for Zion to be a star?
Long term, I think MANNIX nailed it. He, of course, needs to round out his offensive game, meaning a jump shot, meaning more of a finesse game, not just the overwhelming power. But everything else is in place. He is in a great I don't know if I can call it a great organization. An organization that right now has made a lot of really smart moves over the last 3 months.
Yes.
He's got a coach that is going to play his style, not a coach that's going to not play rookies or want to play slow.
Right.
All those things. And he's got former top 5 picks, Jahlil Okafor, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, a couple Dookies in there, in Okafor and Ingram, guys that he can relate to immediately. All of that bodes well for his instant impact and instant comfort.
I'm looking forward to him playing tonight. Seeing him out there on the court, he plays with the energy I believe is really infectious for a young player. He's got rare. But every time I see him play, he does something that I've never seen anyone do. And there's very few players going to ever build. The anticipation is as high since LeBron James.
Yep.
All right, moving on to free agent Danny Green. When asked if the Lakers could be a potential landing spot, Green simply said, quote, "They have 2 expletive superstars. It speaks for itself." Nick, how big of a role could Danny Green play for the Lakers?
Let's assume they don't get Kawhi. Danny Green would be my #1 target if I were Rob Pelinka, if I find out Kawhi's not coming there. If you do get him, of course, you try to add him. Unless he wants to take a pay cut, you wouldn't be able to. But not just because he's the best player, he and Boogie Cousins, best player available, but positionally and stylistically, he is the perfect fit, a dead-eye shooter in the backcourt who plays defense, who's been in 3 NBA finals. He checks every single box for them.
You know what, Danny Green? He might play bad during the regular season. He might play 2 or 3 series bad. But in a big game, he can take over a quarter. He can hit 5, 6, 7 threes for you, that veteran presence. And they need more guys around that have that type of experience, that veteran experience, because everywhere he's been, they've only said great things about him on and off the court.
Since he left Cleveland when they didn't want to keep him, he's never had a losing season. He's always been to the playoffs. He's always been on good teams.
Wow.
All right, finally, Kawhi Leonard has reportedly narrowed his decision down to the Lakers and Raptors, and though most would love the opportunity to play with arguably the best player of all time in LeBron James, Kawhi is trying to carve out a legacy of his own, and the shadow of the king could hinder that. But according to a report, LeBron would be, quote, passing the torch to Kawhi. CC, you buying that LeBron can and would pass the torch?
LeBron is the smartest basketball player we have in the NBA. And right now in the NBA, there is no player, LeBron himself, that players want to play with. Right now, Danny Green and some of these other free agents, you know where they're waiting? They're waiting on Kawhi. because out of the top 5, out of the top 10 players, he's the least amount of maintenance. You know he's going to be a top 3 defensive player. We've saw his individual offensive end. He just continues to get better. His playmaking skills, probably the most questionable skill that he had, he continues to get better at that. Everyone wants to play with Kawhi. So if LeBron is smart, and if he wants to do a Tom Brady-ish type thing and have true longevity in Los Angeles, which I believe LeBron wants this to be the last team he plays for. And LeBron doesn't want to play 2 more years. LeBron wants to play 5 more years if he can. But people have to realize that LeBron taking a back seat. You have to realize a back seat is 24, 11, and 8. Like, yeah, that's what LeBron's going to do because he knows he can win multiple championships and that supersedes. He's already started that process. Anthony Davis, you know the reason why I'm going to give you the number that I've always looked up to, number 23? Because I want you to be comfortable. It's far more important for you to be comfortable and me to give you that number. The number 1 highest selling jersey last year in the NBA was number 23. I'm going to give that to you. And then you know what AD did? You know something? I'm going to waive that trade bonus that I have. That's leadership. LeBron is a great leader. Even if you might not like some of the things he did, the move, the decision, he's a great leader and one of the best teammates. And this would be one of the smartest moves of his career because Kawhi is a no-maintenance superstar. And Kawhi just turned 28. Kawhi is going to get better. There is no off-season rehab for him. If the Lakers want to get back to prominence, all right, LeBron James is at the forefront as far as getting that turned around, and that becomes yielding some of that power, some of that influence that he has, not only to Kawhi, but also to Anthony Davis. So no matter what, if there was one superstar there, LeBron would have to surrender that, and I believe that, giving that number up, that's a great way to be able to do it. And I expect LeBron to be able to adjust because he knows what's best for his career, and that submission to those other superstars is what would get it done.
You said a lot there that I totally agree with. There's one point I want to emphasize.
Did you say I talk too much?
No, you said a lot there that I totally agree with. There's one point, though, that I want to emphasize, and that is how long LeBron wants to play. Because one of the things the Lakers in this offseason, before they traded for Anthony Davis, that they totally miscalculated, to me in an embarrassing way, was when they were offering Ty Lue, saying to Ty Lue, when Ty said, why are you making a 3-year offer to me? They said, we're hiring you to, I was told, they said to him, because we're hiring you to coach LeBron, not the Lakers, and LeBron's got 3 years on his contract. LeBron James, you are correct, does not ever want to change teams again. Doesn't mean he won't, but does not want to. And you're also correct in this. He believes he is playing 5 or 6 more seasons. That doesn't mean he will. That would be 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and maybe 22 as far as years in the league. Why can we say 5 or 6 more seasons? He wants to give himself, this is not speculation, I know this, every chance to have whatever slim chance it has to one day play in an NBA game where his son is in that NBA game, on his team or another team. Well, his son's about to be a freshman in high school, and I'm not trying to put extra pressure on Bronny like that. None of that.
But you are.
Okay, but he. If I know that, the kid knows that. So we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it. My point is, timeline-wise, LeBron is thinking about another 5 years minimum of his career. No matter how outsized his own expectations for himself are, he knows you cannot play this workload, this level, this usage rate in year 19, in year 20, in year 21. The only way to elongate the career is to get a guy like Anthony Davis, and then as an added bonus, if you can get a guy like Kawhi Leonard. Won't nobody be talking about LeBron James' lack of effort on defense if Kawhi and Anthony Davis are on his team? It won't matter in the regular season. In the postseason, he'll be able to ratchet it up. He will be, I think if they get Kawhi, I would bet money LeBron for the first time in his career averages double-digit assists. He's already had 8+ assists the last 3 seasons, only done it 4 times in his career. It's been the last 3 seasons or 3 of those 4 years. I would imagine that gets to double digits for the first time. He would be, when I laid out the lineup they could have if they don't get Kawhi, but even if they do get him in particular, he could essentially just play point guard. I know you to be a big lineup, but bring the ball up the court, distribute, take over when needed. And there's a reason he's been developing that super long three, because that's a shot that doesn't take a lot of energy to get into. Like you don't have to do a lot of cutting, a lot of
less wear and tear on your legs.
Absolutely right. Just almost a set shot, 31-footer is something he's shot as much as anyone in the league other than Steph and Dame. So I do believe if that is what taking a lesser role means, that is the plan. To be a distributor, to let Anthony Davis and Kawhi Leonard to be the leading scorers, and to try to, while he's approaching Kareem on the all-time scoring list, get as high up that all-time assist list as well.
FS1 is your destination for the day's best sports shows. Tune in for the biggest personalities on the biggest stories. We get you started right here at First Things First. Catch it on Monday through Friday, only on FS1. Back here with Chris MANNIX. MANNIX, though Kawhi's decision is taking what feels like forever. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving teaming up in Brooklyn. I said it feels like forever. Their decision was pretty premeditated. The two reportedly planned on playing together last offseason, and though we'll have to wait a year to see the two on the court together since KD is still rehabbing from that Achilles injury, the Nets have bragging rights. Chris, do KD and Kyrie need to win a title to validate their move to Brooklyn?
I don't think they need to win a title. This is a completely different situation than Kevin Durant going to Golden State, where he needed to win a title. And he was joining a 70-plus win team, and he needed to win a championship there. He's joining a Nets team that is okay, a playoff team, and they're going to obviously elevate that team. But if they don't win a championship, it'd be disappointing. I don't think it invalidates that. But for Kevin Durant, and let's assume for the sake of argument, he comes back and he's 90% of the player that he once was, he's going to get the opportunity that he had in Oklahoma City. He is going to be the alpha on a team. He's going to have his version of Russell Westbrook, once again, in Kyrie Irving. He's going to have a good supporting cast, good coaching staff. He's going to have the chance to unequivocally lead his team to a championship. And this is something he didn't have in Golden State. He only had in Oklahoma City, and he's going to get again in Brooklyn.
Well, and that is, for me, why it was so obvious that KD was sooner rather than later leaving Golden State. Was the only thing he hadn't done as a pro, he was not going to be able to do there. And so for the move, I think, is validated already because we know why they did it. It made basketball sense. I think even though I don't think many people like the way they each handled discussing their free agency this offseason. They did it instantly. Nobody thinks there was anything untoward about it. Team up, go play together. And KD has earned a level of dispensation from, I think, fans and media because of how the time ended in Golden State with him already knowing he's leaving, yet still going out there not 100% to try to help them win a title. But for Durant, when we talk about him as one of the all-time greats, as is he the best player in the league? Where is he on that pyramid? Which I know that for some people think I focus too much on it. The great players, many of them focus on it as well. They do measure themselves against others. This is the only thing he has left to accomplish, and it is the thing he must accomplish in order to not validate his career, but to ensure, when we talk about the greatest players in the history of the game, his name is on that list. Kobe, as great as Kobe was, if Kobe didn't get those two titles post-Shaq, he is in a different discussion. It is those two. If LeBron didn't get the title in Cleveland, he is in a different discussion. We know this. Like, this is when we're talking about these all-timers. And so Jerry West needed that one title after being eliminated in the finals year after year after year. So for Kevin Durant, I think there is a different type of validation that hinges on him eventually winning a title. Kyrie, it's a separate story because he'd be winning a title in the same way he won the one in Cleveland, which is an overqualified number two option, an overqualified wingman, and we know he can do that.
Kevin Durant, if he doesn't win anything in Brooklyn, he still goes down as one of the greatest scorers, one of the most effective scorers that we've ever seen. He is one of one. We've never seen anyone play basketball that looks like him, that plays the game the way he does, scores the way he does. I mean, we just have never seen it. So now all of a sudden, because he goes to Brooklyn, he's got to be able to validate what, if something tragically happened to him, what I would be saying about him. So I'm with you. No, it's not about validation. But what it is, it changed the NBA. because Golden State, if he decides to go back to Golden State, the only competition for them would be a healthy Kawhi, AD, LeBron. Like, because we would have gone through another 3 years, been like, well, who's playing for second place? Does the 82-game season, does it mean anything? But what I think it establishes a number of things off the court that I believe are just as important, that they are not the little stepbrother to the New York Knicks, because Kevin Durant and Kyrie, they have more pulling power to lure other things to Brooklyn, other players to Brooklyn, why they're there. So the credibility that Brooklyn gets, the amount of money they're going to make on and off the court. There are a number of other things that basketball players, that what they're trying to build, his media company, all those things, those are successes for him. Kevin Durant would love to win a championship. He would love to stare down LeBron with the Lakers and add that. But you can't control what the front office does. What if Kyrie hurts his knee? What if Kyrie is not healthy? Like, there's so many other variables that we can't allow Kevin Durant's legacy to be determined just by that, when he's already one of the greatest players that we've ever seen,
yeah,
man.
He can only enhance his legacy.
Correct.
He can't diminish his legacy. But it's a good point you make about the value that Durant and Irving have to the Brooklyn Nets. It's going to last decades after their careers are over. When you move a team to Brooklyn, even if you're only moving it X number of miles from New Jersey, you're trying to develop a new fan base. And to do that, you need like 3- and 4-year-olds to become Nets fans, and eventually, when they have buying power, to be able to buy season tickets down the line. Like, the value that these two guys are going to bring in young fans that are begging their parents to take them to games and to be part of that Nets culture, it's going to pay off exponentially down the line when these two guys are long gone.
So it doesn't matter what these two do in Brooklyn?
Well, no, that's. I don't think anyone's saying that.
Nothing is going to taint their.
I don't.
Is there not more at stake for Kyrie? I think there's more at stake for Kyrie. Like, if Kyrie goes and screws this up, like, it's going to be a pox on his resume for.
Like, what happens
if
the Nets don't make the playoffs next year? It's just Kyrie playing.
If the Nets don't make the playoffs, people will indict Kyrie on because they made the playoffs without him. But let's assume, just for the sake of the discussion, next year goes about how we think it will. They win in the mid-40s. They maybe win one round in the playoffs and get knocked out, which no one would crush Kyrie for. No one would laud him incredibly. Just about the median expected result. Then when KD's back, how good are they? And this is where, of course, it matters if they win, because while you're not going to go backwards, I agree with you on that. It will be back to the question of, can KD win a title without the champion Golden State infrastructure? Like, that's the question. And so I think he's good enough. I think we know that he's good enough. And I don't think you should measure players just by counting rings, because, as we've talked about earlier, if Kawhi picks the Lakers, KD and Kyrie could go as well as humanly possible, and KD could simply run into a version of what LeBron was running into with him up against him in Golden State. But to your question, Jenna, of course for Kevin Durant, he's already one of the greatest scorers ever. I totally agree with you. A championship outside of Golden State makes him not one of the greatest players ever. It makes him in that pantheon, top 15, all-timer, one-name guys, greatest players ever. He's not there yet. Steph's not there yet either, by the way. There's only one guy currently. Dwayne Wade never got there. Like, there's only one guy currently playing that's there. That's LeBron. Kobe was the most. Kobe and Duncan were the most recent. So that is what is on the line for Durant, and I think that's the challenge he wanted. I think that's one of the reasons he was, when we were talking about Brooklyn or New York or the Knicks, yes, it was the city, but it was also the ability to deliver a championship to a team in the Knicks that hadn't won one in 46 years, or the Nets who've never won one in their franchise history. I think that matters.
It is, but to turn it back to Kyrie, because we're talking about both these, like, if he screws this up, it's going to be, well, Kyrie made a shot in his career. LeBron won championships and Kyrie made a shot. If he, Kyrie doesn't have to win to have all this validated, but if they significantly
if it goes
underachieve,
bad,
if it goes bad, it's going to turn on him. I think it's going to turn on him faster than it will turn on Durant. All
right, moving on to the biggest story yet to happen in the NBA, and that would be Kawhi Leonard and his decision It's narrowed down to the Clippers, Lakers, or Raptors, but according to friend of the show, Cris, this one's really down to just a coin flip, with the Claw doing some deep soul-searching between two teams, the Lakers and the Raptors. All right, Mannix, what do you think the decision will tell us about Kawhi, depending on which way he goes?
I think it'll tell us what's really important to him. And I had this conversation with people when it came to Kyrie Irving, where I wondered what was really important to him. Is it money? Is it living in Brooklyn? Is it the chance to get far away from Boston? And Kawhi's presented with options that are just completely different from each other. I mean, you stay in Toronto and you're buying into the team concept they have there. You're buying into what happened there this past season. You go to the Clippers, you're believing in their infrastructure and you want to be the man on a team in your hometown. You go to the Lakers and you're saying, I want to be on a super team there. So I think we'll just learn what Kawhi values. I've said this before, and like anyone that thinks that like the insight into Kawhi Leonard is very difficult to actually get. But if he went to the Lakers, it would just be against everything that I know about this guy. Just what I know about this guy is that he believes he's the best player on the team, any team he's on, that he's the best player on the floor every time he steps on it, and his team, regardless of who's around him, is going to be able to win. Him forming a super team has never really lined up with what I know about the guy.
Well, the reason why it doesn't line up is because he didn't form a super team. His team growing up, since he was a kid, happened to be the Los Angeles Lakers. When all he knew about professional basketball was the San Antonio Spurs. When he had a problem with them, he told them specifically, trade me to a place. And they were like, they're not going to help out the Lakers. He said, okay, trade me to L.A. I was the first one to report Kawhi Leonard will play for the Clippers. That was because they wouldn't trade him to the Lakers. And you know what's happened since then? LeBron James left his hometown to go to L.A. L.A. with Rob Pelinka, people didn't think he could get it done. He put all those picks together in players, and he has Anthony Davis. Kawhi just happens to be a free agent right now. So it's not like he formed a super team. Kawhi, it's always been this. He's concerned about his body. He's concerned about his basketball development, all right? And he's concerned about winning championships. They have told me that Kawhi will not avoid a team address because they have great players. That's the reason why, part of the reason why the Clippers with KD were so exciting for him. The Knicks with KD. That's why he was going to interview with the Knicks and with Brooklyn. So it's not like Kawhi has not thought about it. In Kawhi Leonard's priorities, you're right, no one knows him, but I've had insight. All right, I think I'm the closest person, and he would not avoid playing with great players if everything else lines up. If he trusts that medical staff, if he believes the coach can get them in a position and the rest of their staff continue to develop his ability, Kawhi Leonard, that is the misconception about him.
Right, and I think there is a distinction. It would go against what we think we know about Kawhi if leaving Toronto, let's just say Golden State didn't suffer all those injuries, KD stayed. He's like, you know what, I want to go play with them. I want to go play with the Warriors, a team that was never on the radar. Just, nope, easiest championship. I agree with you. He has the highest individual winning percentage of any player in NBA history. And so he has a winning record against basically every other star in this league. He obviously should believe in his mind's eye, I'm the best player alive. All these guys, they'd be on my team, whether that's true or not. But the Lakers...
Say that one more time, man. Because I think people will miss that. That
Kawhi is the highest individual winning percentage
and then what you said after
in NBA history. That they would be on my team.
That's exactly what he's thinking today.
Right, that he's 7 years younger than LeBron. And he is around the same age and vastly more accomplished than Anthony Davis. And so for those reasons, that even if LeBron's in almost special category, LeBron will be 35 on December 30th. Kawhi, you said, just turned 28. So he wouldn't be joined. It would almost be more of a question if he were to have joined a healthy Kevin Durant. Because a lot of people, Durant's around the same age, a couple years older, and just as, if in fact, a little more accomplished individually because he's won an MVP. But I agree with you in this regard. The decision will tell us a lot because you can't lie with your actions. If he stays with Toronto, to me what is clear is not only have they earned his enormous trust, but trying to go back-to-back matters. And we've talked about nobody's ever walked away from that opportunity, best player to back-to-back, except for Mikan and MJ, who retired. They didn't go to another team. And by the way, I think people don't understand how rare it is to be the best player, unquestioned best player on back-to-back champion. 9 guys have done it. Mikan, Russell, Magic, Zeke, Akeem, Jordan, Shaq, Kobe, LeBron. Those are the 9. The reason is Steph or KD, I don't know who would be the best player. If you want to say one of them was, then there's 10. He would be walking away from that opportunity, at least to do it in the same organization. If he does that, it will be to go home, either to the organization with less talent but more trust, or to the organization with overwhelming talent, but can you really trust them? That's the decision laid at his feet right now.
So, now we wait, right? Now it's going to happen today for the most part, because at this point he's met with all 3 teams. He's weighed every option that Nick has laid out. He's texted you, or at least his uncle has, as many times as possible to say we're still waiting. Is this when it happens?
Yesterday, this was a situation. There's still 3 teams involved, and they said no decision was going to be made on the 4th of July. Uncle Dennis, it is his birthday today, and they did tell me that over a week ago. So today is the only day that a decision could potentially be made, because I know their minds were not made up along the way, and they wanted to give the Raptors a real opportunity at trying to convey what they were going to do moving forward.
What do you go ahead, Jen?
Does it surprise you that, I mean, we have been here for weeks now going through the pros and cons of every team, and even though he's been playing basketball, does it surprise you at all, Cris, that he is not swaying one way or another, that at this point it's really up in the air of these 3 teams?
Not really, because of how the Raptors season ended. I mean, it ended in a championship, and that adds another variable to the table that he has to take into account. I mean, he's not a player like Kyrie whose season ended in mid-May, and once your season ends, then you really start to think about what your future is going to be. And Durant's been thinking about what's going to happen with him for the better part of a year now. I mean, for Kawhi Leonard, everything that's added up over the last few months has to be taken into account. I'm talking about the shot he made against Philly, winning in the conference finals at home against Milwaukee, winning a championship. All these things you have to really kind of soak up and digest a little bit. That's why it doesn't surprise me that he's taken this long.
And I think a lot of guys would take more than 2 hours or 2 days if they knew all my options will wait on me.
Yeah.
Like, how many guys made a free agency decision that we think might end up regretting it in a year?
I don't think their decision is based on the time. All right? I don't think it has anything to do with the time. I think that they ended a little more than 3 weeks ago, the NBA. This roadmap that they're on, they set out this process. They didn't know how free agency was going to go. It was going to go like this or longer. If Brooklyn and the Nets were taking the interviews, we would still be waiting for Toronto to finish up today at getting the last interview.
Agreed. The point that I'm making is Nikola Vucevic, for example, would he have, if he knew I'm going to have 4 years, $100 million waiting on me no matter what, would he have weighed more options? Would he have tried to meet with teams? If Bojan Bogdanovic knew no matter what, I'm getting almost $19 million a year on a 4-year deal, would he have interviewed with more teams? From talking to agents, and I know you have as well, what I was told is because of the 6 p.m. start time where everyone's awake, everyone's up and going, there was an element of, here is the offer, we are only going to hold it for an hour or for 90 minutes. So no one's putting that time pressure on Kawhi. And everyone in life on a major decision should take as much time as they can, weigh all their options, talk to as many people as possible, get all the information. Everyone else is just not in that position. Philly wasn't going to hold that money for Al Horford for a week and then risk losing out on everybody else.
All I'm saying is the host of a morning show, if Kawhi waits another week, we are literally going to run out of material.
It should be noted.
No, I'm not.
It'll be great for Chris Carter.
No.
But it should be noted real quick, if Kawhi waits another 3 days, the Lakers all of a sudden are in a very rough spot. The Lakers need this decision before the evening of July 6th because of the timing of the Anthony Davis stuff. Bobby Marks laid this out better than I can, but just the Lakers almost would have to take themselves out of the running if he doesn't have a decision by the time we're on the air Monday.
I think Danny Green wants a decision, too. Danny Green in his podcast starting to get a little anxious about what's happening right now with Kawhi.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.